So, I think it's no secret that the Warstrider is probably one of the most hated enemies in pretty much the entirety of Helldivers. And generally speaking, I'll be honest, I do not get this thing. That thing just generally confuses me. You see, when it comes to chargers, you can just kind of backshot them. You know, when it comes to tanks, you can just climb on top of them and just completely shred its vents. Or maybe even cut through the joints of a harvester with your fat ass fucking machine gun. I mean, heck, even factory starters can be killed with nothing but throwing knives. Yes, I actually tried that because I have no hobbies. So why the heck can we not do that with Warstriders? I mean, we can do now, but why the heck was that ever even a question in the first place? Why are they designed that way? Well, I have a theory. You see, when the game first released, AT weapons weren't really supposed to be commonplace. Instead, people were probably supposed to just kind of work together to defeat enemies like Hulks or similar, with essentially heavy weaponry being more of a rare occurrence. An enemy like the Warstrider would have sort of thrown a wrench into that, where players would be forced to bring anti-tank weapons with them. However, that is not how most people play Helldivers right now. Most people are essentially running around like a Swiss army knife. And especially in the bot front, everyone is essentially just running around with their emotional support ultimatums and thermites. The result being that most players are essentially running around with roughly like 5 anti-tank sulfurs at any given point in time. This results in a bit of a dilemma because either people have anti-tank weaponry and are like sort of close enough to a Warstrider and they just kill them in like a few seconds, or they don't, in which case they're just kind of fucked. So I'm going to do something for this video that usually I'd be pretty hesitant to do, and that is to actually ignore what I, at the very least, think is the intention of the developers. Instead, we're kind of going to do a bit of our own thing and kind of adjust the Warstrider to be a bit more close or similar to other heavy units, while still making it a bit more on the unique side of life. So, funny enough, one of the first ideas that I had for the Warstrider is actually inspired by some recent changes that they've made to box engines, where essentially, if you shoot both of its cannons, the explosion will kill them, or at the very least, destroying both of its cannons is fatal. So what we're gonna do is, we are going to make it so that all 4 weapons that the Warstrider has, its railgun repeater thingies, as well as its grenade launchers, will all combined be fatal. On top of that, we're going to double its health, but make them unarmored, and essentially just give them no durability. You see, the bot front is mostly dominated by medium pin weapons, either your standard ARs, which are fast firing but have low damage, or DMR type weapons that oftentimes are single shot, but have a high amount of damage. The thing is, if the Warstrider's weaponry doesn't actually have any armor, well then medium or pen weapons won't have an advantage. In fact, they are most likely going to have a disadvantage, as they usually have less damage or have some other disadvantage compared to light weapons to kind of balance out its medium armor penetration. Also, we're going to make it so that it's not durable. For those who don't know, durable damage is a mechanic that, at least as far as I'm aware, Arrowhead included in the game to kind of avoid having a spray and pray meta, so that full automatic weapons tend to do less damage against enemies that have high durability, while single shot weapons usually have a bit more durable damage.
Alright, editor me here. I kind of need to fact check myself on this one, because it sort of isn't, but also sort of is true. Durable damage generally seems to just be part of balancing, right? For most weapons, durable damage is like roughly 25% of their regular damage, but not for all. If you look at, for example, the recently released Hotshot Marksman Rifle, it has 275 ballistic damage, but only 40 laughable durable damage, which makes roughly like 15% of its regular damage. Meanwhile, on the other hand, you have the Jar 5 Dominator, which also has 275 regular ballistic damage, but 90 durable damage. So roughly 33% of its standard damage. Another one is, for example, the Deadeye, for example. That one has 100 ballistic damage, that one has 300 ballistic damage and 100 durable damage. So it seems to be more of a regular balancing factor than a factor that is specifically about spray and pray.
This means that essentially most of the weapons that people would usually use on the bot front wouldn't be the most effective against this new Warstrider variant. They would still work, obviously, but they wouldn't be the most effective, which means that other weapons, like maybe a Stalwart or like just a regular Liberator variant, would be more useful and would maybe be picked a bit more often. Not much, but maybe a little bit. Also, I think generally having these parts be tanky, right? Like the usual health of, I think the rail cannon repeater thingies is like 500, so doubling it would bring it up to like 1,000, which I think would result in like a combined, like a total health pool of like 3,600. The exact amount of damage is something that you would sort of have to iron out in playtesting. This whole double the health is more of just a blank suggestion, but I think in general giving these parts a lot of health would also make it so that there's more of an incentive to work as a team and to destroy these parts. Another nice benefit is that if you destroy these parts, well, you destroy these parts. You destroy the Warstrider's weaponry and essentially slowly but surely disarm it before inevitably killing it. The thing is just that when I first came up with this concept, it didn't feel quite right. I wasn't 100% happy with it. So I came up with another idea. You see, one interesting thing about heavy enemies is that in a three-dimensional sense, their weak spots are sort of opposite of their danger zones, right? If you are in front of a Hulk, you're dead. If you're behind the Hulk, well then usually the Hulk is dead. Same thing with something like a Charger, right? If you stand in front of a Charger, you're gonna have a very bad time, but if you're behind it, you can hit its exposed weak spot, aka it's behind. It's kind of like this with a lot of enemies. So what if we did a similar thing, but sort of in more of a four-dimensional sense? For those who don't know, the fourth dimension is essentially just time. So what if we did a similar thing, but in more of a four-dimensional sense? For those who know, the fourth dimension is essentially time, where instead of having always available weak spots, we have weak spots that are only temporarily available. And instead of having their weak spots be opposite of their danger zones in a three-dimensional sense, have them be opposite of their danger zones in a four-dimensional sense. So essentially having weak spots that are only exposed after or before they attack. Since the Warstrider doesn't really have as much of a designated danger zone as other enemies like Hulks or Chargers. So, same idea as before with multiple attack points that combined are fatal. But imagine this. You are currently in an encounter with a Warstrider. It's spamming its fusion repeaters, but then you notice that these weird like little canisters on the side of the fusion repeater is glowing. You shoot at it and BANG! The whole fusion repeater explodes. You try to do the same thing on the other side, but that canister doesn't really do anything. It doesn't really get damaged and has already stopped glowing. It essentially has cooled down again. So you wait for the Warstrider to spam its one fusion repeater again, the canister gets hot again, you shoot it, and bang. Other cannon is gone too. I would do a similar thing with the grenade launchers, except instead of having them be targetable, after an attack, I'd say they should be targetable before an attack. The idea is that the Warstrider would probably like kneel down, then the grenade launchers would extend sort of out of this tube or whatever you call it, or maybe have those vents turn into heat vents that could be shot, and we'll extend it and fire a ring. The whole thing would be destructible. With this, we would essentially have 2 weak spots on the side that would be targetable after an attack, and 2 weak spots on the back that would be targetable before an attack, but that attack would also be sort of telegraphed by the Warstrider kneeling down. Now, this is not really anything super revolutionary. This is essentially just the Impaler, except, you know, the Impaler only has 1 weak spot and it's only exposed during an attack. Unlike the first idea, this wouldn't really change the meta, but I do still think that this would make Warstriders a lot more fun to fight. One thing that I think is relevant is that both ideas focus on disarming the Warstrider, which generally speaking, I think again, would just make them a lot less annoying to fight against. But now I'm curious what you think. Would you like to see these changes in game, or do you maybe even have an idea yourself that you would like to share? Whatever it is, feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video and are already down there, I mean, might as well leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the content. But yeah, that's it for this video. Hope you all have a great time and happy gaming!